Welcome to Ideagen TV. We are ecstatic to have with us today Megan Bettilyon. Megan is the Chief Technology Officer at AdAstral Labs and Vice President for the Washington Global Health Alliance. Megan, welcome.
Hi, George. Thank you.
You know, Megan, we've had an opportunity to get to know you over the years in your incredible leadership, and you're not stopping. You're doubling down. You're changing the world. And you're doing it with a hyper focus on partnerships. Megan, leading right into the interview, why do you feel that partnerships are so critically important? And most importantly, what makes a good partnership?
Partnerships, especially as they pertain to the Sustainable Development Goals, are one of those special ways that we have to actually get our work done. If all of us try to operate in some sort of a silo, we're never going to get the agreements that we need, the policies that have to be changed, all of the little inner workings that happen simply will not happen. And partnerships, a lot of times people have a tendency of thinking a bit myopically or within their own sphere. And so we say partnerships as an NGO, and we think, oh, we need to partner with other NGOs. And likewise in corporations, when we say partnerships, we're usually talking about partnerships with some other corporation. But, you know, in my career, what I've always really worked toward is making sure that those partnerships are very much interdisciplinary, right? So if I'm in an academic institution, I want to partner with an NGO. I want to partner with the specific UN agency that I might need to further some project that I'm working on. I'm probably going to have some sort of industry collaboration there. So for all intents and purposes, a really good partnership is not just one that benefits both parties that are involved or all parties that are involved, but it's a partnership that benefits society as a whole. If you are always looking at that bigger picture, not just what's going to do good for your organizations that are involved, but what's going to do good globally and bring that global impact, that's where a really good partnership lays.
You know, and that's just an incredible perspective on how these, you know, and what really makes a good partnership. And so as we talk about goal number 17 today, and, you know, looking at these 17 global goals holistically, what do you believe, Megan, is the best approach for achieving these global goals, these 17 global goals that I must remind the global audience, I always do this, remind the global audience that they were unanimously agreed to by all 193 member states to achieve these goals by 2030. So what is the best approach for achieving them, Megan, and why?
Well, you know, if you've ever sat in on those negotiations, which I know you have, they tend to be a little sticky. And even though everybody agreed to those goals, they continue to argue amongst themselves about the right way to actually achieve them. And for good reason, right? Because, you know, equity really does need to exist as we work toward achieving these goals. And equity means something different when we talk about each of the 17 goals. You know, just in the news these last few days, unfortunately, we've realized that the climate goal we're simply not going to reach. No country right now is on track to reach its climate goals in 2030. And while that is unfortunate, it's not necessarily a surprise, having been in these negotiations and listening to the minutia of the conversations and the arguments over funding. Even though a lot of that funding actually does exist, it's just sitting in bank accounts in different places. And again, this comes back to partnerships. There's partnerships that are the political versions of, you know, of corporations that people have kind of stopped talking to each other. And we're seeing a world that has become increasingly divided. And the pandemic has only shown a greater light on that division and the inequities in healthcare, the inequities in all of the goals and how we're going about achieving them. And I in no way am I saying that we need to start over from scratch. But in an ideal world, I would hope that some people could check their egos and try to really do something that's for the betterment of society and not the betterment of their own power structure.
You know, I love what you just said about egos. Not because I have an ego, but because my mantra is always check your ego in at the door before any meeting or any deliberation. And that's such a daunting task for the planet when you think about where we're at. And what I personally and professionally love about the global goals is that they're a unifier. And what you just said about whether you disagree on how you get there, the fact that every single country on the planet Earth agreed that these are important goals is really the amazing component of the global goals themselves, that everyone agreed that we should eradicate poverty, that there's, there should be an empowerment of women and girls across the planet, that global partnerships are critical, and on and on. And so sad to hear we've fallen behind on certain achievement of the goals. But as an optimist, and I know you're an optimist as well, we can catch up. There's an opportunity. The world has gone through such an interesting, we'll just say, time over the past few years with a global pandemic, which is the elephant in the room, the global pandemic. And really what you said, Megan, is striking as well about the bright light that's shining on inequality across the planet. You see it in vaccine distribution. You see it, some countries are vaccinated, others are not. And that's problematic as well, right? So we sort of know where there are issues that can be addressed. And then you go to climate and all these other issues that you talked about, and you really start to begin to understand it. And so I'd love to pivot to your current work. So you're at AdAstral Ventures, you're changing the world. How are you using partnerships to carry out this absolutely amazing mission at AdAstral?
Sure. So AdAstral was born of the idea, just the very idea of partnerships. We as a team had worked through our first fund, very much focused on partnerships, but in a much more philanthropic sense. And while that was a great achievement, and we were able to bring a lot to the world in terms of actually marketable products that were focused on the least developed countries, we also realized that there were a lot of challenges associated with using philanthropic dollars, especially when you're actually trying to sell products back into a marketplace and dealing with licenses and royalties and everything else along those lines. And so when we had an opportunity to pivot to this new second fund, we absolutely took it, and we did it with the idea that this was going to be let's call them the for-profit dollars, but none of the nonprofit dollar or philanthropic dollar entanglements. And from that point, we just continued to build on the partnerships that we already had. And as I had mentioned before, being a laboratory where inventions are happening on a daily basis, right? Part of my job is working with the scientists. It's working with the prospective companies that might be able to help us with a widget here, or perhaps it's designed for manufacturing. And then also working with those companies that we think might want to actually distribute or market these particular products or ideas later on, or these little tidbits of research that we're spinning out into something that's larger. But all of it is with an eye for impact, for social impact. And everything revolves around human and planetary health. So I get to continue to build on those relationships that I've made throughout the years in the philanthropic side of things, in the philanthropic fund, and really move that forward stronger and faster, as far as I'm concerned, to achieve those goals, and to be able to really participate back in not only the Sustainable Development Goals as they stand, and literally all 17 of them we touch at some point, but really also to develop these extremely powerful partnerships that help in other aspects of policy making. So that's really something that we're quite proud of at AdAstral. And I would say that actually continues over into the other hat that I wear with the Washington Global Health Alliance. As vice president of that organization, it's really my job to make sure that people are communicating with one another, and that stream of information from our membership and from our accelerator sponsors, that's actually translating over into the research at the academic labs, and vice versa. So keeping that balance between new invention, new innovation in the labs, but also making sure that doesn't just die in a lab somewhere, that gets elevated and pushed out, so that the end use of the companies and or the products actually makes it into the places where it's supposed to, and hopefully has a profound positive benefit and impact on the global scale.
You know, absolutely remarkable to hear, and you do, and we know, touch all of the 17 global goals, which in and of itself is remarkable. And you're pushing this transformational technology and the notion of partnerships together with that to change the world. And in addition to that, Megan, as you know, you're not only focused on partnerships, but you're also focused on cross-sector collaboration, which you and I and so many others have talked a lot about over the years at Ideagen. It's the nexus, the secret sauce, if you may, of changing the world. It's that cross-sector collaboration. Why? I can talk about this all day. Why is cross-sector collaboration so critically important to help solve many of the world's most critical issues?
If I were to invent the most perfect new mousetrap, I would not be able to get it into any sort of widely used circulation without cross-sector collaborations. I mean, it's just not possible. Depending upon which regulatory group that you would need to go through to get certain approvals, right, and whatever distribution and marketing channels you might need to go through in order to actually get it out into the world. And then, maybe certain countries have a policy against your type of mousetrap, and so then you need collaborations there that help to navigate through the waters of certain governmental approvals. All of this takes cross-sector collaborations all the way across the board. And like I was mentioning before, it's also not just the type of organizations that need to collaborate, but it's the type of people that need to collaborate with one another. There are somebody like me who's extremely passionate and has been for the vast majority of their career, focused on trying to create social impact, positive social benefit on a global scale. But then there are a lot of people out there in this world, I'm sure this is not going to come as a huge surprise, who that is not their top thing. That's not what they're always considering. It's not what they're always thinking about. And quite often for those people, their own personal gain is something that they're very interested in. And I know a lot of people in my industry try to shy away from having conversations with people that fall into maybe that different category. But the reality is the different types of people can really help each other out a lot. So, if I'm speaking with someone who's very money focused, as opposed to social benefit focused, they're going to have a Rolodex of people that are really interested in what I'm potentially able to offer them from an emerging market perspective, because emerging markets are one of those, it's kind of the Wild West, right? People are always interested in getting into the ground floor on something that's novel. And so this is where a really interesting opportunity for personalities to set their differences aside. And as we were saying, set the egos aside and just have a straight conversation about, okay, how do we both achieve our goals? Even if our goals might be a little bit different, at the end run, we want to make sure that this new company or that this new product gets out into the world. And so how are we going to work together to achieve that?
Incredible perspective and such incredible insights as well. And speaking of insights, Megan, I'd love for our global audience to hear a little bit more about what sort of projects you and your partners are working on to help further this specific progress of the UN's global goals.
Well, I can start with the Global Health Alliance. We have a lot of the work that we do is very much focused on health access and health equity. And so we have a number of working groups, and we refer to them as communities of practice. And one of them that I love dearly is the Women in Global Health. And they are absolutely 100% committed to bringing about greater equality in healthcare access, and by offering additional opportunities or providing additional opportunities to women and girls on a global scale. And that's not necessarily just STEM education, but that's also figuring out ways to provide opportunities for entrepreneurship. And that's making sure that there's access to some form of mental health care. That's providing better nutrition opportunities for both maternal and child health. And they touch on all of these sectors in a way that it's unlike something that I've seen in other organizations, because each and every single participant in our Women in Global Health community of practice is absolutely passionate about achieving what they're trying to achieve. And each of them come from varying backgrounds in industries. We have everything from MD PhDs to CEOs and CTOs of organizations, and program officers inside of different NGOs and governmental institutions, and they're all working together toward these common goals of trying to create better access and healthcare equity.
Incredible, Megan. And I'd like to take a moment to express our sincere gratitude to you, AdAstral, the Washington Global Health Alliance, and all the work that you're doing, and all the incredible people and organizations from across sectors that you're working with to help change the world. Thank you for being part of Ideagen TV today to talk about these goals. Megan, what is your call to action, and how can our global audience find out more about you and your work?
Well, my call to action is, I think, what I had said before. It's set your ego aside. It is to go forth and work on really making partnerships that may have made you feel uncomfortable before. Work outside of the box on this, because we are not going to achieve these goals if we don't find new ways of working together. Obviously, business as usual, it's not working. And moreover, if you do create a partnership, follow through on that partnership. Don't just let it be, all this talk in an MOU that gets signed somewhere. Move forward with it. Make your end goal to be an actual deliverable that has a positive benefit in one of the SDGs, right? Like find one of those things, and then do it. And I think that's the thing I see most often is partnerships are created, and then nothing ever happens of it. It's just an MOU on a piece of paper. So I challenge you to go forth with your partnerships and actually create something beautiful. If anybody is interested in learning more about the work that we do, I'm at the Washington Global Health Alliance, which is wgha.org. And then AdAstral Lab is ADASTRAL.org. So that's adastral.org. And please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well.
Megan Bettilyon, global leader, luminary, change maker, and leader. Megan Bettilyon, you are amazing. Thank you. Thank you for your commitment to changing the world.
Thank you, George, and thank you for having me today.